the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Pleasant evening and a very warm welcome for the national news on Rupavahini ChannelEye. I'm Dilanjali Anand. Joining me is Charita Minipurarachi, and these are the top stories making headlines for tonight. The USA contributes $30 million more to provide lunch for school students. The special Gazette notification relevant to the local government polls issued. Immediate steps will be taken to prevent illegal import of mobile phones. A response to Maitri on his apology. Pumpkin farmers are in a quandary. Huge protests against the decision to increase retirement age in France. Now for those and other stories in detail on your top story. Colombo Chief Magistrate yesterday ordered to release convener of the Inter-University Students' Federation, Vasantha Mudalige, who was remanded under the Prevention of Terrorism Act.
Accordingly, he was brought to the 4th Magistrates Court this evening from the prison and released. Issuing the verdict, Chief Magistrate Prasanna Alves informed that adequate evidence has not been presented under the Prevention of Terrorism Act to further remand the suspect. Thereby, the magistrate said that he had no legal provisions to further remand the suspect and was released by the court. Large crowd, including his close friends and relations, gathered at the 4th Magistrate Court premises. The USA has increased the humanitarian aid granted to Sri Lanka by another $30 million, visiting Deputy State Secretary of Political Affairs Victoria Nuland said that accordingly the USA has granted over $20 million within a period of 1 year.
The US envoy further said that the USA government continues to support extended to Sri Lanka in their attempt to normalize the country. She expressed these views at a discussion held with President Ranil Wickremesinghe at the Presidential Secretariat this morning. President Wickremesinghe expressed gratitude to the US for the support extended to overcome the most difficult situation faced by the island. The President elaborated in detail on the moves taken for national reconciliation and the all-party talks to implement the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. President's senior advisor Sagala Ratnayaka and several other officials were present at these talks. Concluding the tour, Victoria Nuland held a press briefing this evening. She said that another $30 million will be granted for free lunch given to school students. About 96,000 students in 850 schools will benefit from this donation. In addition, grains and edible oils will also be provided from this money. The US envoy also expressed views regarding the ongoing talks with the IMF. All creditors to Sri Lanka will support the IMF debt restructuring program. Victoria Nuland further said that China should also extend support to Sri Lanka under the scheduled strategy.
Sri Lankan government says that a truth-finding mechanism will be established. A new bill will be presented in accordance with international methodology to confirm the human rights in Sri Lanka. Minister of Foreign Affairs Ali Sabri made these comments at the review on Sri Lanka over the human rights condition in the UN Human Rights Council. The Universal Periodic Review of the UN Human Rights Council was held today to consider the human rights situation in Sri Lanka. This review was conducted based on the human rights present reports by the government, human rights institution and civil society human rights activists.
Issues raised, particularly on measures to combat corruption and also to respond to the...
Sri Lanka has made extensive preparation under the difficult circumstances for a productive interaction with the UPR working group. A number of other government stakeholders who have been involved in the preparation for today's review are following the process online from Colombo in support of the delegation. These multiple arrangements reflect the importance we attach to our PR review and the advice of this working group in this regard. Sri Lanka's national report for the 4th cycle captures the progress made over the last 4.5 years and also the challenges faced in the process of implementing the recommendation accepted during the previous cycle. For maximum transparency, These recommendations had been made public in Sinhala and Tamil language and also shared with the relevant government stakeholders for implementation through their respective sectoral action plans. Several rounds of consultations were held with these stakeholders to assess the status of progress. In this context, I myself, in my previous capacity as the Minister of Justice, engaged, and currently as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, continue to engage with these stakeholders, including the civil society. The national report was produced through an extensive and inclusive process with the broad consultation with local stakeholders, including government ministries and agencies, civil society organizations, and the National Human Rights Commission. I wish to express my gratitude to all those who contributed to this endeavor. I also take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. President, and the UPR Secretariat for the technical support to my delegation. Also, our deep appreciation to the Troika, Algeria, Qatar, and the United Kingdom for their cooperation, as well as all members of the UPR working group who have inscribed to speak today.
A special Gazette notification relevant to the local government polls to be held on the 9th of March has been issued. Accordingly, the voting will take place from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. on the same day. The notice has been issued by the district returning officers in pursuant to the 38/1/C sub-clause of the Local Government Polls Ordinance. Accordingly, returning officers of 24 districts issued 24 Gazette notifications. 80,720 candidates will contest the election from 58 accepted political parties and 329 independence groups. The polls will be held for 339 local government bodies except the Alpitia and Kalmune local government institutions. Chairman of the Elections Commission, Attorney at Law Nimal Punjiheva, has informed the Secretary of the Ministry of Public Administration to implement a suitable program to stop misuse of resources of local government bodies for political propaganda campaigns, if any. If necessary, the Secretary is able to issue a set of guidelines through the provincial governors or under any other system to the officials of the local government bodies. New People's Front accuses that the bond money deposited by the political parties are being used by the chairman of the Elections Commission. The party lodged a complaint to the Secretary of the Finance Ministry in this regard. Citizens' Organization of People's Struggle has requested the CID to check whether the bond money given to the Elections Commission is properly saved. A group of organizations made complaints to the CID in this connection. The independent group number 1 contesting the election from the Moratua Municipal Council handed over a letter to the Election Secretariat today requesting information regarding the bond deposits.
And meanwhile, public rallies are being organized targeting the local government polls at present. Several public rallies were held yesterday as well. Samagi Janabalawege has organized a rally in Amparu area under the patronage of party leader Sajith Premadasa. Leader of the Samagi Janabalawege, Sajith Premadasa, said that under a government formed by Samagi Janabalawege, we will never bow down in front of any international body, including the IMF. I request the public to hand over the responsibility of eliminating hunger of the 22 million people to the son of Premadasa.
සනීපයි කියලා මම කියන්න කැමතියි. මම ආසයි ජනතාවත් එක්ක ඉන්න. ලක්ෂ 220 වෙනුවෙන් නැරෙන්න උනත් සජිත් ප්‍රේමදාස ලෑස්ති කියන එක මේ අවස්ථාවේ ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
Another meeting organized by the National People's Power was held at the Samanture area. Leader of the party, Anurakumar Dissanayake, and a group of party supporters were present at the meeting. Leader of the National People's Power, Anurakumar Dissanayake, said that they request public to form a new government instead of all political systems. He appealed to the public to believe in them and hand over a country for one single term.
State Minister of Finance Ranjit Simbalapitiya says that immediate steps will be taken to prevent illegal import of mobile phones into the country. He points out that the country loses a huge tax income due to such imports. The State Minister made these remarks at a discussion held with a group of mobile phone importers at the Ministry of Finance yesterday. IMEI numbers of all mobile phones properly imported to the country are registered at the Telecommunication Regulatory Commission. In case of misplace or misuse of a phone, it is identified by the IMEI number. The illegally imported phones cannot be traced in such case as the Commission has not registered the IMEI numbers. Mobile phone importers expressed mixed views regarding the government's decision. In addition, it has been reported that health safety of the illegally imported mobile phones is not confirmed. Therefore, State Minister Simbalapitiya instructed the Sri Lankan Customs to take stern actions regarding this matter. The State Minister ordered the custom officers to submit a report in this regard by next Monday. He has also instructed the Trade and Investment Policies Department to take measures to prevent illegal imports of mobile phones.
Minister of Justice Vidya Rajapaksa says that the government will cause no influence to the Independent Election Commission. Minister of Justice Vidya Rajapaksa said that there is nothing to comment on the 13th Amendment. It is a part of the Constitution. Various people expresses numerous views regarding the implementation of powers vested by the 13th Amendment. Despite the controversial amendment, Sri Lanka needs a national policy for lands. Therefore, we must agree to prepare a land policy through a National Land Commission. Such a commission cannot divide the country or distribute lands to provincial councils. The National Police Commission, which was established by the 21st Amendment, is now functioning independently. Any type of police powers are carried out by this independent commission. And meanwhile, Father Cyril Gamani says that there is no whatsoever reason to former President Maithripala Sirisena to be exempted from the allegations of Easter Sunday attacks.
Father Cyril Gamani made this comment in response to the statement made by Maithripala Sirisena apologizing to the Catholic Church regarding the attack. Former President Maithripala Sirisena said he begs pardon from the Catholic community of the country for the tragedy that occurred during his rule. Father Cyril Gamani said that Maithripala Sirisena has the right to contest the presidential election again. However, due to negligence, about 270 innocent people were brutally killed and over 500 were eternally disabled. He was utterly failed in his political career. Therefore, intelligent voters of this country must decide to remove him from politics once and for all. Begging pardon is not the question. The real matter of the problem is to find the truth for the future and the security of the country. Now, wild elephants are frequently subjected to railway accidents during the past period.
Although many steps have been taken to prevent these accidents, there are no satisfactory results for the problem. And however, the Wildlife Department says that they have been able to control the accident by the steps that they have already taken. Many such strategies are reported from the northern and eastern railway lines. A major reason for this situation is a number of national parks are located close to these railways. During the past 10 years, 95 jambus have been killed due to an accident. During the last year, only 14 elephants come to the injuries. The Railway Department and the Wildlife Department has taken many steps to minimize the wild elephants knocking down on trains, imposing speed limits, using high-power electric lamps on the locomotives, and several other measures were taken. The Wildlife Department said, however, the expected results have not been received yet.
Minister Susil Premchand says that new education reforms are not made merely to get the answers for a question paper the students have memorized from study material. Minister made this comment participating at the prize-giving ceremony of the National Level IT Champions 2021 tournament. The ceremony was held at the Ministry of Education. The minister requested the graduates of the state sector to get ready to the competitive teaching exam without going to tuition classes. The exam is to be held in March this year. Minister Susil Premjayant said that the Education Ministry issued a gazette notice on Saturday to recruit graduates as teachers. Some individuals have already started tuition classes targeting the graduates who are keen on sitting for the teaching exam. A versatile graduate should be able to sit for such a competitive exam without the help of getting tuition classes. This trend shows the tragedy of our education system. Graduates who intend to start their career as teachers should change their attitudes right from the beginning.
A song titled Sehina Sarugal, sung by Chatura Sahan Gunawardana, was launched yesterday at the SLBC Ananda Samarakon studio. The lyrics written by the song is Minister Dr. Bandulu Gunawardana. Music director is Nadika Guruge and Don Madhava Karunanayaka has contributed to visual animations. Many veterans of music sector were present at this occasion.
Now, a sum of 10 billion rupees have been allocated for paddy and maize cultivations in the next Yala season. The money will be utilized to purchase 25,000 metric tons of urea. There are about 30,000 metric tons of urea at the warehouse of the leading two fertilizer companies. Minister Mahinda Amaravira has instructed the officials to maintain the reserve of 100,000 metric tons of urea. The Ministry of Agriculture has already drawn plans to provide all three varieties of fertilizer needed to paddy cultivation without any shortage. Meanwhile, a shipment of 36,000 metric tons of preliminary fertilizer will arrive in the island in the middle of this month.
From the fertilizer story to an update of the crocodile, a crocodile that has swollen a bait was saved by a group of people in Morankuduwa, Gonawala area. The crocodile was at unleashed due to the bait, and a 40-year-old person named Udara Sanjeeva has come forward to release the crocodile from the bait. He has brought the crocodile to the land nearby and opened the jaws of the crocodile with the help of the residents of the area. After 30 minutes swift mission, they have managed to remove the bait from the crocodile's throat. Later, the animal was released to a safer place at the Bolgoda reservoir. That's it on local news. Stay tuned with international news coming up next.
சுதந்திரத்தின் வைரவிழா கொண்டாட்டத்தின் உதயம். இலங்கையின் 75வது சுதந்திர தினம் மற்றும் இசுருதான கணக்கின் 25வது ஆண்டு நிறைவை கொண்டாடுவதன் நிமித்தம் பிப்ரவரி 1ஆம் தேதி தொடக்கம் 14ஆம் தேதி வரை பிறக்கும் குழந்தைகள் அனைவருக்கும் மக்கள் வங்கியின் இசுருதான கணக்கினால் 2000 ரூபாய் பெறுமதியான ஒரு பரிசு சான்றிதழ். மக்கள் வங்கியின் இசுருதான குழந்தைக்கு வழங்கக்கூடிய புத்திசாலித்துவமான பரிசு.
Welcome back with international stories. And authorities in Texas responded to hundreds of accident-related calls yesterday as an ice storm wreaks havoc in the roads of threatened parts of the South and Central United white ice and slate. The ice weather disrupted daily life for the thousands across parts of Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma and Tennessee, with freezing rain baking roads, slick sledding cars and sliding, and promoting officials to urge residents to stay home. Schools district shut down classes in parts of Mississippi and Tennessee, and at least the healthcare system in Texas closed down in clinics amidst the dangerous conditions. One person died yesterday morning in a 10-car pile-up in South Austin, Texas. The city of the fire department said said. The Dallas area of the city of Arlington, a second person was killed when the vehicle rolled over. Northeast of Austin, 2 people involved in a multi-vehicle collision along the state highway 130 were taken to a hospital with life-threatening injuries after going over the side of an overpass bridge, country's emergency medical services said. One of the victims had exited their vehicles before being struck by a car and thrown off the bridge, Captain Darren Noakes said, while the others saw a vehicle sliding towards them, jumped off the bridge to avoid being hit. Austin police responded to more than 200 collisions called yesterday in a Dallas responder dealt with more than 140 vehicle accidents in 24 hours, the city fire rescue department said.
Now, France has seen a second wave of protests and strikes against President Emmanuel Macron's plans to raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Anti-government cottages were as loud as and big, if not louder and bigger than on the first day of action. The number of marchers was expected to surpass the 1.2 million recorded 12 days ago. 8 key unions took part in the strike, which disrupted schools, public transport and oil refineries. The CGT trade union said 500,000 protesters had gathered in Paris alone, although authorities put the number at 87,000 and put the total number across France as high as 2.8 million. But for all the mass mobilization, it is still far from clear if the protesters can force Mr. Macron to back down. The government can withstand any number of days of action like this so long as they take place along the predictable and orderly lines that they have so far. Mr. Macron's government is pushing ahead with its pension age reforms in the face of opinion polls that suggest 2/3 of voters are opposing for the changes, which begin their passage through the National Assembly next week. Without a majority in Parliament, the government will have to rely on the right-wing Republicans for support.
And at least 28 people, including soldiers and civilians, have been killed in 2 attacks by armed assailants in Burkina Faso, a regional governor and army said in separate statements. The Burkina Faso army said that a combat under the north of the country is near its border with Niger came under attack and 10 soldiers, 2 fighters of the volunteer force and a civilian were killed. The army said that bodies of 15 assailants were found after the attack. In a separate statement, governor of the country's Cascades region in the south near the border with Ivory Coast said the bodies of 15 men, all civilians, had been found following an attack on Sunday. The governor said armed men had stopped 2 transport vehicles carrying 8 women and 16 men. The women and 1 man were freed, he said. The latest killings come on Burkina Faso and its neighbors in Mali and Niger battle armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIL, who has occupied territory in the country's arid and mainly rural north, executing hundreds of villages and displacing nearly 2 million people. The fighters have blockaded thousands of towns and villages, worsening a food crisis. More than a third of Burkina Faso now beyond the control of government. Frustrations within the army regarding the handling of the security situation triggered 2 coups last year and has intensified political instability and strained relations with former colonial power France, which has fought against the armed groups in the Sahel region.
The United States is readying more than $2 billion worth of military aid for Ukraine that is expected to include long-range rockets for the first time, as well as other munitions and weapons, according to Reuters news agency, citing 2 U.S. officials briefed on the plan. The aid is expected to be announced as soon as this week, the officials said on Wednesday. It is also expected to include support equipment for Patriot air defense systems, precision-guided munitions and Javelin anti-tank weapons, they added. One of the officials said a portion of the package, expected to be $1.725 billion, would come from a fund known as Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative, which allows President Joe Biden's administration to get weapons from industry rather than from U.S. weapon stocks. Ukraine Security Assistance Initiative funds would go towards the purchase of a new weapon, the ground-launched small-diameter bomb, which has a range of 150 kilometers. The U.S. has rebuffed Ukraine's request for the 300-kilometer range Actism missile, the GBU-39 bomb, which would function as the GLSDB's warhead, has small floating wings that allow it to glide more than 100 kilometers if dropped from an aircraft and hit targets as small as 1 meter in diameter. The USAI funds would also be used to pay for more components of Hawk air defences, counter-drone systems, counter-artillery and air surveillance radars, communication equipment, Puma drones and spare parts for major systems like Patriots and Brigades, one of the officials said. There was also a significant amount of medical equipment enough to equip 3 field hospitals being donated by another ally, the officials said. The White House declined the comment. The contents and size of 8 packages can change up until they are signed by President.
Pope Francis has demanded that foreign powers stop plundering Africa's natural resources for the poison of their own breed after he landed in the Democratic Republic of Congo as a part of a trip to 2 African nations. The 86-year-old Francis is the first pontiff to visit the Congo since Pope John Paul. It did so in 1985 when the country was still known as Zaire, calling Congo's vast mineral and natural wealth a diamond of creation. Pope Francis demanded the foreign interests stop carving up to the countries for their own interest and acknowledged that the role of the economic enslavement of the Congolese people. Francis pointed out the finger at the role of colonial powers such as Belgium played in the exploitation of Congo until the countries, which is 80 times the size of Belgium, gained its independence in 1960. His also neighboring countries are playing a similar role today. The Pope didn't identify Belgium or any neighboring country by name, but he spared no word of condemnation, saying that there was a forgotten genocide underway. After half of the Congo's population, 90 million, are Roman Catholics, the 6-day trip, which also includes a stop in South Sudan, was originally scheduled for July 2022, but was postponed because the Francis' knees problems, which were still so serious on Tuesday that he could not stand to greet journalists in the plane heading to Kinshasa and was forced to use a wheelchair on the ground.
Sports Minister Roshan Ranasinghe pledged the appeal court today not to take any action against the Sri Lanka cricket until the report of Auditor General is received.
A committee had been appointed to look into several incidents, including influence made to the Sri Lankan team by a religious group titled Born Again. The Ministers of Sports was also to take an action based on the report of the committee. However, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Cricket Shambi Silva and Secretary Mohan De Silva had filed a petition at the appeals court preventing the sports minister to take such an action when the petition was considered at the appeals court today. The Minister of Sports made the pledge not to take any action until they received the relevant report from the Auditor General. Chairman of the National Sports Council, Arjuna Ranatunga, stresses that all sportsmen and women who represent Sri Lanka in international events must focus special attention on their discipline. Today is the second day of the first 4-day unofficial test between Sri Lanka A team and the visiting England Lions team played in Galle International Cricket Stadium. Battled first, the Sri Lankan team A scored 136 all out for the first innings. The England Lions team scored 467 runs for the first innings. At stumps of the day, Sri Lanka A team was playing for the second innings.
That's all the news we have for tonight. Join us tomorrow at 8:50 p.m. for the very latest on Channel I. I'm Delanjali, together with Charita, signing off. Good night.
Have a pleasant night.